Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of God Built This podcast. I'm your host, Maxine, and we're on episode 83. All right, this episode is going to be kind of heavy. So let me say trigger warning. I don't usually like saying that because I feel like just go ahead and say it. But this will cover domestic violence. What does that look like within intimate partnerships? What does it look like in the home? What does that look like dating? And how can you best identify it and hopefully run, walk, leave that nigga alone? But this conversation is in light of the announcement that came out of a versus battle between Fabulous and Jadakiss. And for those who may not know, Fabulous and his wife Emily were in a domestic violent situation not too long ago, I think just last year, that resulted into Emily losing her front teeth. Okay, her front teeth was knocked out because Fabulous punched her allegedly 7 times in the face. I believe it. I'm just saying allegedly for legal reasons, but I want to talk about this topic more in depth because we, as a society, we normalize domestic abuse, we normalize abuse, we normalize toxic behavior when it comes to dating, when it comes to romantic relationships, when it comes to just home relationships, people in the home that you are living in. It may be from your parent, from an elder, from a sibling. We normalize horrible, disgusting, violent, toxic behaviors, yet we don't normalize what does that look like? What are some signs to be aware of? How to best manage yourself in a situation that is violent, how to leave, how to feel about yourself when you may be a victim of these behaviors. And I recently read a memoir called Educated by Tara Westover, which is a heavy book, very good book. And it tells you a story about, well, just the life of Tara Westover, who is a doctor or a PhD person. She earned her PhD, and she, before all of that, before she became as educated as she is, hence the title, she grew up in a town that was heavily, heavily religious. And the religion that was practiced was Mormonism. Her family was strictly Mormon, not just strictly, it was radical Mormonism. So radical to the point where she started off the book with a disclaimer, like, this is not how other Mormons may be, right? Or maybe most Mormons. This is just her story, her life story that she is sharing. And it doesn't mean that all Mormons are this way. And that proves to be the case throughout her story because in her neighborhood, in her town, her family was the most radical. And by radical, I mean, and this is not exclusive to Mormonisms, Mormons. This is just to any radical religious people, group of people, church person. So with radical religious folks, they distrust the government, they distrust the school system. They are borderline paranoid, thinking that if I send my child to this school, a public school, send them off to college, that the system will warp their child's brain and would be a pawn of Satan. They just hate the system. And so they create a life of their own. They create their own life and homeschool their children. They misfeed information about America's history, about uh, just the life between different cultural groups in the world. So, for example, with Tara, she was not taught about slavery in the way that it is to be taught, right? So, and this is not just a radical religious thing, because I notice with um, other other people who have learned about slavery. So with white people, there are some white people who learned slavery as, these were hardworking Black people who were happy slaves, and they enjoyed tending to the garden, tending to the yard, and being a happy employee. They got paid well, and they lived a pretty good life. Okay, and obviously that's not the case. We know that to be true. But for so long, that's been embedded into so many people, not just white people, but there are plenty of white people who believe that and who would revere will hold reverence to their ancestors, thinking, wow, my ancestor fought in the war and, won this war against Britain, against, any World War situation that happened. And I'm proud of my history. I'm proud of the Confederacy, right? A lot of white people feel that way. And that's because they weren't taught enough about the cruel reality of slavery. And that was the case for Tara Westover. So she didn't learn about slavery the way that it should have been taught. She didn't know about Jim Crow, Rosa Parks, segregation, Martin Luther King Jr. She didn't even know about the Holocaust. Like, so many different cases of injustice and cruelty in the land of the free, she was not privy to. So she talks about this in her book, and abuse is one of the main topics in this story, in her story. And within her household, her brother, who I think has a mental illness, and that's not to excuse his abusive ways, but there was something like he snapped so suddenly. If you said the wrong thing to him, or if you didn't respond to him that in the way that he wanted you to respond, he would snap. So one time he asked his girlfriend at the time to go get him a Hershey Kiss from the store. So she goes to the store, gets the Hershey Kiss as requested. She returns to him and gives him that. He says, what is this? I asked for a Reese's. So he'll do something like that. He'll do that specifically. I asked for a Reese's. And she said, no, you asked for a Hershey Kiss. He'll get angry and then slap her around, beat her down, and this will be a repeated thing. And there was a couple times when she would say, okay, let me just go back to the store and get that Reese's Kiss, because he said he wants a Reese's Kiss now. So then she'll go to the store, get a Reese's Kiss, and she'll return. He'll say, I actually asked for a Mr. Goodbar. Nigga, what the fuck? Go to the store yourself at this point. But the point is, he'll gaslight her. He'll make her go crazy in her thinking. He'll make her feel like her sanity is loose. Turn the light on. He'll make her feel like her sanity is loose and is not properly embedded. He'll just make her go crazy, and then he'll beat her up time and time again. So I, as the reader, just assume, okay, maybe this is something that he just does to, which is still horrible, but maybe he's exclusively doing this to his girlfriend, right? To just people he is dating. Not the case. He then bleeds that into his relationship with his sister, Tara. And then we come to find out that he's done that to all of his siblings. Well, specifically his other female sibling, his other sister. And I think he had a fighting fit with his brother as well. But it's not the same, right? When two men are fighting, it's equal as far as physical stance, as far as strength, right? But when you are fighting a woman as a man, you obviously have more of an advantage. Let's just be honest. I'm not trying to get killed by the feminism movement. It's just biologically, let's just be honest here, okay? So he then goes and do the same thing to his sister, Tara. And she would be subjected to him. He will provoke her, literally. So he'll poke her in her stomach. If she even cares to speak up for herself and says, don't touch me, stop touching me like that, He'll twist her arm, drag her by her hair. There was so many instances when he would drag her into the bathroom and put her head in the toilet. Okay? Just because he wanted to, just because he was annoyed, just because he wanted to show her who's boss. And it was so prevalent throughout her childhood, and nothing was done about it. Her parents were in the house, her parents were present. They would kind of mind their business, or they will just like calmly say, okay, stop, cut it out. You're doing too much. Like just kind of casually going over it, when in fact you have an abusive son who's abusing your daughter. That should be clear, and that should be not tolerated, obviously. Yet, living in a religious town, she was, well, religious household that was radically religious. Her father would tell her, you provoked it. You are the spawn of Satan. You seduced him to react this way. You know, people argue that in the Bible, women, well, I could kind of see that too, not even just people. I could see how in the Bible the women are portrayed as the seductress, the one who is to cause for mankind to fall. You know, think of Eve, how she persuaded Adam to eat the apple, and you know, that's what's that lady's name from the Bible? She was on her roof, well, I think on her balcony, taking a shower or taking a bath. Blasphemy. I can't pronounce her name right now, but y'all know who I'm talking about if y'all know. But she's taking a bath outside, and there's preachings on her. This is gonna bother me. I'm gonna bath Bathsheba. Yes, okay, Bathsheba. So for so long, I remember being taught about her story and how she was the one who was the reason behind David's sinful actions. You know, she seduced him. She was the one who, you know, made him fall into his temptation because she knew what she was doing. And these lines, these lies, in fact, are still perpetuated to this day in different dynamics. You know, you have young girls who would confess and share with their mother how Uncle so and so or how your boyfriend touched me last night, right? Your boyfriend came in my room and he said, don't say anything. Has he put his penis inside of me? Okay. So, and then they're told by their parent, by their mother, you should have never did that. You should have never wore that. You should have never spoke that way. You seduced him. You wanted it. Okay. And it's so disgusting, and it's just a heavy realization how much this talk, this language, this behavior has been just casually a part of life. Like, niggas been saying this. It's been said. Women are to blame, you know, for their own sexual abuse, their own trauma, their own physical abuse. And it's so debilitating to step out of that mindset and to not believe that, because for so long you're taught that, right? So I think about her story and how her brother was never held accounted for, yet she was the one to blame. You know, how we always put the blame on the victim or the survivor, and yet we don't at all recognize the problem at the root. And as I'm looking into this more and looking into that into my own life, I think that's the reason, because it's so easier, like it's so much easier to put the blame elsewhere than actually sit and realize, whoa, my son is an abuser. You know, whoa, my friend, my brother, my father, my uncle is an abuser. It's so hard to accept that and to sit with that. So instead, let me just not address that reality. And I'm just going to put the blame on this woman because he couldn't have just been this way on his own. He couldn't do this. That's not in his DNA. You must have done something to provoke it. This is just a normal thing that people say, and that is the problem when we talk about this behavior and this action. We normalize it so casually. We normalize it in the home. This is just what happens, right? This is what happens back in the day. This is what happened. This was rape culture. This is something that just, don't take it too seriously, move on. We normalize it, and we don't talk enough about how that is debilitating to so many people, to the victims and to the survivors. So as I was doing my research about this, I was learning about just different cycles of abuse and how it continues until finally you break free from that cycle, right? Because if it's a cycle, it's going round and round. So there's 4 steps to that cycle. It starts off initially with tension building. Okay, so there's a breakdown of communication. The victim becomes fearful and tries to placate the abuser. So tries to calm him down, trying to appease to him. And then finally, the incident happens. So let's also keep in mind, abuse is not only physical. More times, well, typically, most likely, the physical abuse begins after verbal, emotional, mental abuse takes place. Okay. So you don't start dating somebody and he just suddenly hits you, right? There's a buildup that happens. He or she, right? But let's be specific to men. Okay. I know females could be abusers too. I do agree with that. But I'm talking about niggas. So before the physical abuse happens, the man would, say certain things that will be emotionally and mentally abusive. So, calling you out of your name, making you feel like you got to walk on eggshells because if you don't, he's gonna go crazy, lose his temper, gaslight you, make you feel like you're crazy, make you feel like you don't have a leg to stand on, like you're overthinking things, manipulate you in different ways to hold control over you. And then finally the physical abuse begins, okay? Because there's this mindset that the abuser may have, thinking, well, if I could get away with calling you a bitch, if I could get away with cheating on you, if I could get away with disrespecting you, making you feel crazy, making you feel like you have to just tend to my beck and call, then you know what? Let me go ahead and slap you across your face. Let me go ahead and punch you 7 times in your face, right in your mouth, and make you lose your 2 front teeth. Okay? So after the incident takes place, there's reconciliation. Because, of course, to keep you stuck in this cycle, I want you to know and feel that I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to apologize. I'm sorry. I'll do better. I won't do it again, right? I could reconcile with some gifts. I could show change, improve behavior, for a limited time, of course, until it happens again. But in the meantime, I'm just going to show you I'm changed and I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. You're forcing it. During this reconciliation phase, the abuser would also give excuses for their behavior and will put the blame on you. Like, well, I wouldn't have to hit you if you just told me where you were, if you called me back when you said you was going to, if you were home at this time like I expected you to be, if you finished dinner on time, I wouldn't have to hit you. So, next time, don't do that. And there goes that mindset change now, because now the woman's thinking, well, okay, that makes sense, right? So let me just make sure I have food, have dinner ready and available and placed on the table at 7 p.m. every night. Okay. The abuser will also dismiss the severity in his actions by just kind of dumbing it down. Like, it's not that serious. Like, you're forcing it. Let it go. That happened 2 weeks ago. That happened a year ago. That was yesterday's problem. This is a new day, new joy. They'll try to find ways to make you feel like you're forcing it, right? And that's a problem. And finally, the calm will take place. At this point, the victim is probably tired of fighting, probably tired of um, just trying to appease the person. So instead, you know what? Let me just accept your apology. Let me go with the flow with this reconciliation bag. And the incident is forgotten. I'm going to forget that you called me a bitch. I'm going to forget that you punch me square in my face. I'm going to forget that you threatened my life, because you know what? He apologized. Things are pretty good so far. It's been a few days of this goodness. We're in our honeymoon phase. That's what it is, a honeymoon phase. The incident is forgotten and things seem to be good. We're in a good place. He seemed that he really changed. It really seemed like he changed. So but yet it's a cycle. So after the calm comes in place, it's always a calm before the storm. Then the storm happens again, and then we're back at step 1, tension building, step 2, incident, step 3, reconciliation, and finally the calm, and then over and over again until hopefully you are able to leave the situation alive and well. Then I finally learned about trauma bond, which is also called Stockholm Syndrome, which occurs in abusive relationships. So this is characterized as an imbalance of power, high intensity and unpredictable atmosphere, rapidly shifting between periods of cruelty and tenderness. So it overall encompasses cycles of abuse, and you are somewhat feeling indebted to your abuser, hoping that you could change him, hoping that you could make him be the person you want him to be, right? I can make him better. He went through a traumatic experience in his life. I could be that love for him. I could be that peace for him, right? You know how many niggas will be like, I need you to be my peace. Well, I need you to be the peacemaker. How about you don't hit me upside my head, then I'll be your peace. Ain't no peace here, nigga. Like, anyway. So this is all bringing more of an awareness for me to further talk about this, because like I said, I think we don't normalize the conversation enough, if at all, especially in comparison to how much we normalize the behavior. And that's the problem. So when I was hearing that there was is a versus battle between Fab and Jadakiss, I think about what happened after that point when he knocked the 2 front teeth of Emily, right? What happened? Because I do remember, of course, there was backlash, Twitter went off, but of course, we have enablers in the music industry. We have enablers in his surroundings, right? His friends, his family, her in a way. And it's not to victim blame her, but it also just further encourages him to continue with this behavior, because there are no repercussions for it. There are no consequences for it. So it scares me in a way, because we don't know what's happening in the house. We only know when things get so bad to the point where it's caught on camera, because that's what it was. It was caught on camera, and social media had its take on it. But just to give you guys some background for those who may not be familiar, so this incident started off with Fab finding out that Emily was also in the West Coast. And I'm saying also because that's what I read. So that meaning that he was in the West Coast as well. And he found out that Emily was in the West Coast as well. And he found out through Instagram. So that right there, let's start right there, because that's enough for me to know that there is not strong communication between the two. Okay. And for you to learn something about my whereabouts only through Instagram says a lot about the relationship, says a lot about maybe her and him independently and collectively, but it says a lot about just the lack of communication that is present. And it says a lot about his abusive ways. What does it mean so much to you to be that angered about Emily being in the West Coast as you are? Why is that so much for you to be that angry about it, to punch her face 7 times, resulting into her 2 front teeth being knocked out? But like, what does that mean to you? So once he found that out, I guess he ran home and punched her in her face at least 7 times and resulted into her losing her 2 front teeth. There is actual surveillance video of the interaction that was had between Fab and Emily's father. So Fab was seen in the video holding a sharp object while threatening Emily and her father. And had it not been for his bodyguards that came in between him and Emily and her father, he was at a breaking point to further damage her. He lunged at Emily and yelled profanities and threats at her. And Emily later said she feared for her life. There's a quote that he says he wanted to hit Emily in the head with a baseball bat instead. Like that was what he actually wanted to do. And that he would kill her, but he did not want to go out like that. I mean, what do you say after that? What do you say after that? And it just scares me to think that someone really thought like this, that someone was really thinking about killing someone. And the reason why they didn't go through with it was because I didn't want to go out like that, right? I didn't want the people to know that I killed this woman who happens to be the mother of my children. So wanted to hit Emily in the head with a baseball bat. And the amount of strength, the amount of damage that could be had from a baseball bat against the head, it's heavy. So you think about that and you think about what is happening in their home for that to just be a casual thing that he could say, right? And this is obviously not the first case of this abuse. And like I said, abuse doesn't just happen one day. It is an accumulation of verbal, emotional, financial, spiritual abuse. And it just saddens me to hear that she feared for her life, that she was in fear of her life for however long she has been in his home, in his presence, in their home, in his presence, and that she is still with him. And now she is currently pregnant with their second child together. And it's just, there's no words for me to say that could further describe how sad this is, and there's a lot of backlash against her because why are you staying? Why are you still with this man? He punched your teeth out. And granted, they have enough money to get, some veneers, be fine. But the point is, you punched my teeth out. The point is, we are in a relationship and I'm in fear of my life. How does that even work? So this is just one of the many cases, whether it's celebrity couples or just regular folks who are experiencing domestic abuse in the home. And I can't stress enough why it's important that we have more of these conversations to hopefully end this pandemic that is domestic violence. I think about, how does this relate, or how can we see this in our own personal life? I try to find kind of hints of that, like not purposely find, but like I try to be so cautiously aware of the relationships that I have been in, um, and think to myself, is this abusive? Is this normal? Is this acceptable behavior? And you know how they say you teach people how to treat you? Absolutely. And in doing so, you realize, or you finally realize after leaving the relationship, how abusive the person was. And sometimes we don't put the word abuse in front of it, right? Because many times we think, well, he didn't hit me. It's not that bad. It's not that serious. But like I said before, physical abuse don't just happen. It happens after an accumulation of different jabs, so whether it's emotional, verbal, mental, it happens after that point. So I come to think about Boston Bay. Yep, I come to think about Boston Bay. And I've been thinking about that for a while. And I realized to myself, I was in an abusive relationship. He didn't hit me. He did not hit me. But I do wonder, and I'll give more context to why I said that, because though he didn't hit me, it was still abusive, right? We talk about that. It's not just physical abuse, it's emotional. So there was emotional abuse, there was mental abuse, and that is definitely damaging to someone, to anyone who is a victim of that. So, and I think about how, you know, it's a blessing how I am. And what I'm about to say may sound problematic, but and I'm saying that because abuse could happen to anyone. Like no one is exempt from it. You could be the richest woman in, you know, in earth, on earth. Is that, yeah. You could be the richest person here. All right. You could be successful in your career. You could be well astounded in your community, and you could still be a victim of abuse. Like it doesn't hold any boundaries, doesn't hold any biases. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, you could still be a victim of abuse if you are not aware of said behavior, if you're not aware of the language for it too, because sometimes we're not as educated on some topics. So we then realize, wait, hold up, this was abuse, or hold up, this was rape. Hold up. It's like we don't realize until we learn about it, until we are educated on it. And that's why I'm such an advocate for education and learning and communicating with people so we could better learn about just our experiences, and we have a better language to describe it and explain it to others and to help the next person. So yeah, come to think about Boston Bay, I was thinking, yeah, I was definitely in an abusive relationship. um I'm grateful that I never lived with him. Never, we never lived together. But there were period of times when I would spend extended time in his place. There was one or two times when we were out together, like out of the town together. And I think about just me as I am, just me as a person, and I'm so grateful to God for making me to who I am, because it's not to say I can't be, because obviously I was still a victim of it, of an abusive relationship, but I I'm thankful that it didn't go as far as it could have gone. And I know that to be the case because I'm such I'm such a person who is so interested in learning and being educated and being um, reflective and introspective. Um, I read a lot. I watch a lot of TV. I listen to a lot of podcasts and educational stuff where I'm learning about behaviors. I'm learning about psychology. I learned about gaslighting. I'm learning about different things that explains social behavior and what's abusive and what's not. And I'm not someone who just lies down and take it. Like I challenge you. And just with any conversation, like I like to learn your why. Why do you feel this way? What's your what's your substance behind it? Like I don't accept just anything. I'm not just gonna sit there and like a dummy, like, no, okay. I don't just do that. And no offense to people who do. I know I just said dummy, but my point is I hold you to the fire. And I'm not a dumb bitch, right? I know how to articulate myself. I know how to speak. Um, I have the education to further back that up, but also the experience, the intellect, the engagements, and the dynamic that I have with folks. You can't think to yourself that, oh, I can manipulate Maxine. Like, nigga, bye. Yet again, sometimes, with emotions and the plays of your heart, you could sometimes be a victim of such. But for the most part, you like you can't, like, I can't be in an abusive relationship. And God, like, whew, God bless that too. But my point is, typically what I come to realize is that I, as well as many women who are like me, are not the ones who are typically in abusive relationships. I would say the ones who are the ones who are not as educated, right? The ones who are not as strong-willed, let's say that. Because as much of a strong-willed person as you are in certain areas, you may not be in personal relationships. So I think that plays a factor. So anyway, I say all that to say that I don't realize that I wasn't as, what's the word, as manipulated as I could have been had I been someone else who isn't me. I hope I'm making sense to y'all. But anyway, so I think that's the reason why, I mean, I do still stand on what I'm saying, but I also understand that abuse is not biased. So I get that. I came across Boston Bay because I was thinking about just past interactions with him and how he spoke to me. And y'all have obviously the evidence, the history of that. I share it extensively and honestly, probably too honest, but I share it on my podcast here, and I do that, and it serves me. It's therapeutic for me because I'm able to just express myself. And I think about just gaslighting, specifically gaslighting, and how he manipulated me into making me question my own self, making me question my own sanity. And I was told, like, and for those who may not be familiar with gaslighting, it's just what I said. It's manipulation that makes you question your own sanity. It's pretty much like being told it's raining outside, but you're pissing on my face. Like, it's not really raining outside. You're just pissing on my face. So you're questioning your own self. You're questioning whether or not you heard that correctly, whether or not what was said was actually said, even though it was said. But the person who is lying to you, who's gaslighting you, is looking at you with a straight face. Like, no suggestion of, oh, I'm lying, I'm joking. And I remember 3 accounts when Boston Bay did such. Specifically, he lied to me, because I know it's a fucking lie. He still, liars will just hold on to their lie. Like, nope, I'm gonna hold on to this shit. He said he's a Kappa Apple. Kappa Apple. He said he's a Kappa, which is a fraternity. And how did a conversation come about? I think he just casually said it. And I'm like, yeah, right. You're not a Kappa. Because if you are a Kappa, nigga, where's your paraphernalia? Where's your paddleboard? Like, where's your letters? Like, where are they? And I said that. I questioned him about that. And his instant response was, oh no, I'm just not, like, I never, I'm not the type to kind of show stuff like that. And just didn't really have much of a response. And I'm just looking at him, like, waiting for him to lie and laugh. But he didn't, because he's holding on to that lie so intently. So that's one example. Like, why would you lie about that? What is that? What does that gain for you? He also lied to me. I remember asking him, like, how do you know how to swim? That's so cool that you know how to swim. A lot of Black people don't know how to swim. I don't. And he's like, oh, well, I learned because I fought in the Iraq War. And I'm like, since when you fought in the war, nigga? What the fuck? And he's like, well, I don't want to talk about it. It was a pretty rough time. I don't like to talk about it. Just giving me no detail about it. And I think about the time because I knew him for 4 years, and not once was that brought up. Not once was that ever mentioned of him fighting in the damn war. There was no pictures that suddenly came up of this is the time I held my rifle, on the war lines. Not once has that been said. So just another example of him lying for no reason. Like you shouldn't lie. You shouldn't lie anyway. But really, what purpose was that lie for you? Then he ended up saying that he's related to Candy Burris and Ludacris. Now that might be true, right? I'm not saying regular folks can't be related to celebrities. They're regular folks too, essentially. But there was no point of you saying that. You just kind of said it out of your ass. Like, what does that serve you? And there was no substance that he could have used to support his statements. I think about all of that and how when you are lying to somebody, when you are gaslighting them and making them feel or think a specific way just for your benefit, that is abuse. That is abuse. And that's a form of abuse, right? But that's an example of what I'm saying, how gaslighting is all part of that mental abuse, making you feel like and think a specific way, don't question me, don't make me don't make me don't make me at all challenged or accounted for what I just said. Instead, just take it at top. Just take it. Okay. I recently came across a tarot reading. Not came across, I searched for it on YouTube. I typically do that. I have been doing that for a little while now. And specifically, I came across an Aquarius tarot reading because I'm an Aquarius, if you haven't realized yet. I've been saying that. And in that reading, that bitch read me. It pretty much was for Maxine. Like, it was for me. So she says how an ex will try to come back into your life, and he will come back because he will sense that I'm happy with a new guy, and I would have to choose between the two. And she says that I am tempted to give Boston Bay another chance, but she advises me not to. And I don't want to. I'm not going to. But my point is, I know that in the past, obviously, you all know that I've given Boston Bay chance after chance after chance and have regretted it every time. And she says how he will try to come back into your life. He'll try to convince me pretty much that he would do anything to make me happy. He'll get better, quote unquote. He'll shower me with misses, like I miss you, the love you, the language that he has used in the past with me. I could see that. Like, I'm not at all surprised by this reading. I'm just surprised that it is also recognizing the new person that I'm seeing right now, and I am. So I'll talk about that with y'all a little bit later. But she tells me essentially in her reading that the ex, who has to be, it is Boston Bay pretty much, that he is disingenuous. He has not really changed. He won't really change. He's just doing it to show manipulation, to be manipulative, to control you, and to hold you captive to him, to hold you in that cycle of abuse, like I talked about before. So I think about that. It was eye-opening for me. Like, all of this is not new for me to learn. I'm not surprised by this. It's just a reminder. I feel like it was a warning of what to expect and to be on my P's and Q's, because I know that, with Boston Bay, I've given him excuse after excuse. I've told myself maybe I could just be that person for him to open him up. Maybe I could be that person to show him how to love like that. Showed her how to be open to love. I'm not even that much of a lovey-dovey type of person. So if I'm trying to be that person for you, nigga, we both failing. Like, what we doing? But this is not obviously a good environment for me, right? This is not something that I want to be a part of. And that's due to the emotional and mental abuse that I have experienced with him. I think about all the times when I would try to hold him accountable, right? It'd be for little things too, and big things, but like little things as far as we were supposed to hang out one time, several times, and those times didn't end up happening as I expected, and didn't hear back from him, kind of blew me off. And I remember calling him out on it and said, and I would say things like, wait, I thought we were going to hang out today. You said yesterday that we were. He'll blow up, go crazy, immediately start yelling, having an attitude. Just, how did we get here? I'm just asking you a clarifying question. I thought we were hanging out today, so we're not. So when are we going? Are we going? Like, I'm just super calm on the receiving end. I'm super just kind of well put together. Like, there's no reason for you to be angry at me when I'm just asking you a simple question. He'll turn it around and say things like, you're crazy, when it's clearly him projecting, right? He's the crazy one. I remember one time I asked him one time, when is he gonna get here? Because he was on his way, or he said he was gonna come see me, and I just wanted to know what time. Like, okay, let me know what time. Like, okay, really, Max? Really? Oh, why are you always like angry? Just suddenly angry when, nigga, I just want to know the time so I could be ready, or I just want to know what the time is so I know that I'm not leaving this area before you get here. Because I remember one time he was getting to this place in Hyde Park where I was, and he was trying to see me, and I just wanted to know, hey, when are you gonna do that? Because I'm with my mom and I just need to know the gauge of time, and just asking that sets him off. So you have just different examples of him just instantly getting upset and instantly showing me why I have felt for so long that I'm walking on eggshells with him. I remember he just would get upset over different things, and it's just, this was just my example, or just my realization of how abuse has shown in my life within an intimate partnership. And I hope that this encourages anyone to look within their own relationships and see, are there signs of this in my relationship or in a previous relationship that I was in? I think if we are more honest with that and have these conversations and normalize these conversations, we could hopefully prevent it and be cautious of said behavior and walk away and not give excuses. Because I know I gave a lot of excuses for Boston Bay. I would say, he went through a hard childhood, because he would. I mean, he did. He would explain that to me time and time again, talk about how his father was an addict and how he is still upset that he wasn't there for him when he was a child, and how he felt, just like he felt like a loser, essentially, because his classmates had their fathers. His classmate was able to get a part of this basketball team because their father paid for this fee, but he couldn't do it because his father wasn't around. And he would tell me story after story after story. And in that time, I would feel proud. I would feel proud because I felt like, wow, he entrusted me with this information. He feels comfortable with me. He's showing vulnerability, and this is love, right? No, it's abuse. No, leave. Don't tell me shit about your childhood that you ain't over yet. No, I mean, there's a limit to that, right? If you are talking about your childhood and you're just sharing your history, but if you are doing it in a way that is obsessive, that is clearly unhealed and you are showing no interest in healing that wound, that's a red flag. That's a red flag. And there was one time when he said to me, I remember being on a plane and we got in an argument and I was like, I'm done. Because y'all know many times I said to him, I was done. And I would be done for a little bit and then we'll be back on him. But we were in an argument and he knew I was on my way back to Boston. And he was like, really, Max, you're gonna be here, you're not gonna see me? Like, really, Max? And I'm just like, you need to realize the way you speak to me is unacceptable. I don't appreciate that and I don't deserve that. And I would say myself very clearly. And I think that's why the abuse between me and him never really resulted into anything deeper, because I would call him out on his shit. Like, I'm not the type of person who just sits back and take it. I would challenge you back. I will call you out on it. Don't get me wrong. There are people who have done that and would still be victims of physical abuse. I'm being specific to physical abuse. But in my case, it just didn't happen for me. And I think that also has to do with me not living with him. But I think about just the way I am and the way he is. He knows I'm not no weak bitch. And I think that upsets him. And that gives me joy. I think that's my joy that I take away from this, amongst other things that I'll think of later. But that's one of my joys that I realized from that relationship. I have always stood up for myself, and there were times when I could have stood up for myself better. But I was very clear and I articulated myself well, and I wasn't just you like say sweet nothings to me and I'm good. No. And I think it has a lot to do with my sign, to be honest. Being the Aquarius that I am, I'm not easily emotionally attached to people, particularly romantic partners. I'm able to kind of just, okay, move on. Don't get me wrong. Yes, I did have feelings for Boston Bay. And that was real, but it wasn't enough to blind me of his erratic behavior. Nah, like, okay, I can have fun for you and then move on to the next. So that was the case with that. But yeah, I remember on the plane when he sent me that and I told him, you need to not speak to me that way. This is unacceptable, blah, blah. And then his response was, I know you have a point, you're valid. I'll get better. And that was the first time he's ever said anything like that to me. So even though as righteous as I was, right, in saying what I said and how proud I am that I spoke up for myself in that moment too, I felt like, okay, well, he said he'll get better. He recognizes his ways. Like I just immediately believed that. I was naive to it because that was his first time saying that. He's never admitted he is at fault. He would just kind of ignore it. We'll move on. We'll reconcile, right? It'll be a calm. And then we'll go back into that damn cycle. What was it again? What did I say? Fucking tension building, incident, reconciliation, and calm. And so you think about that and you see how that plays out. And I sit back and I would think, wow, that played out a lot in our relationship. There were many times when it was tension building, then it results into an incident that is, well, between us, it was strictly verbal and emotional abuse, mental abuse. And then it'll be reconciliation. I apologize. I'll get better. Calm what happened. We're in good graces. He feeds me because food is my love language too. And then we're in the honeymoon phase, and then it repeats again until I leave. And it's just, I haven't spoken to him in a few weeks now. He hasn't reached out again since the last few times that he did. I'm proud that I am realizing more of this behavior, and I'm having more of these conversations with myself, really. But I come across these podcasts that talk about just different signs to look for in a relationship that show toxic behavior, narcissistic behavior. And I look at how does that show itself in my personal relationships, and seeing so many examples of that in Boston Bay, it further cements my standpoint in my decision in leaving him the fuck alone. Period. So I encourage everyone to just do their research, to go on a curiosity tour and learn more about these types of behaviors, because you don't like you realize, or you don't realize, how close to home it is, right? Yeah, you may not have a black eye every other week, right? Because you may not live with your partner, or he may not have physically abused you yet, but you may very well be a victim of his emotional abuse, a victim of his verbal abuse. And I think sometimes we may give excuses like, oh, well, he was just angry, right? You know, who has an argument and they're super politically correct and nice about it, right? And I get that to an extent. If we're about to have an argument, or I could feel the tension building, and one, at fear for my life. I haven't felt at fear of my life with Boston Bay, because I mean, like I said, I never, like, we don't live together, so I wouldn't have felt that way. But I would feel the tension building just through text. And I would feel him get angry so much so that he will FaceTime me. Not I feel, but like, he would FaceTime me. He'll FaceTime me and show me that he's not angry. He did that a couple of times. And I get to laugh about it, because like, what the fuck? I think it's such a blessing sometimes to be emotionally detached as I am, because I just sit back and I be like, are you okay? Like, I know one time he FaceTimed me after us texting back and forth. And then he FaceTimed me. He's like, Maxine. No, he calls me Max. Max, really? That's why you had that ugly face on? Why are you doing that? Like, he'll try to do something like that, right? Because my thing, when he says ugly, he's saying it like, because I would do faces on my FaceTime, like, huh? Like, I'll do stuff like that. And then he'll take that and run with it. And I'm just sitting back like, are you okay? You cannot abuse me, nigga. I'll be laughing like, are you okay? Is everything all right? Like, I'm sorry if I've ever hurt you. Like, I would just make it so light, and not in a way that takes away the severity of it, but it's just that I always find the funny. I find the funny. That's how I cope with life. I find the funny, and I I know that irritates him even more. And as he's FaceTiming me, I could see it in his face. And I'm just like, I'm cracking up. It really isn't funny. Abuse is not funny. But I'm grateful that I'm just the type of person that I am, because I know, I mean, I thank God that I don't live with him, because who knows if I would have acted like that right in front of his face, he would have knocked my front teeth out, right? Word to Fab. But it's scary. It's scary when you realize how close to home this is. And speaking of that, I learned of another domestic dispute that actually resulted into the woman being killed by the hands of her fiance. So I learned of Shayna Donahue, is who was a natural hair YouTuber. She went by the name of Nap Queen, with 2 P's, and the name Mercury Venus Me. I learned of her through a mutual friend. See how close that is? Like, who would have known? But we share a mutual friend. I never met her. Didn't know her YouTube page. Like, I wasn't too familiar of Shayna Donahue, but I learned of her murder through a mutual friend. And when I learned of the details of this murder, I was just taken aback. I was taken aback because this man, her fiance, who killed her, he was her high school sweetheart. They've been together for a few years. They recently broke up. They were broken up for 2 years, and she recently took him back. And not too shortly after this event happened. But she took him back 2 years after breaking up with him. And when she was killed, it started off with them getting into a shouting match. Not sure why, but they started shouting at each other. And she ordered him to leave her apartment. Like, you need to leave. Because at this point, she took him back. They got re-engaged, because I guess they were engaged before. They got re-engaged. And she allowed him to live in her apartment. So when this happened, they were living together. They got into a shouting match. She told him that he needs to leave. And I'm getting this off of the news that I learned and his accounts of things, because she's obviously not here anymore to share her side. He said that they began pushing each other. He told the police that she stabbed him first with a pair of scissors, and that he grabbed the scissors out of her hand and quote unquote defended himself. He said that they were both stabbing each other and that she stopped, but then he continued to the point that led to the death of her. And here I quote, he says, "It was like something in me, like the demon in me wanted to kill, and once I killed her, I came alive." And I think about how just scary that is. Yet again, I'm saying just scary because that's just, we don't have to go philosophical on this. It's just downright scary. It's scary that someone who you trusted your life with, right? Someone who you felt like this was someone who I want to spend the rest of my life with, who could be my husband for the rest of my life, would say something like this. It was something in me, like the demon in me wanted to kill. And once I killed her, I came alive. It's disgusting. Um, it's just so sad. And you think about the cycle of abuse again, how even though you could leave someone, more likely than not, you are bound to get back together with that person, right? Statistically speaking, I read somewhere that it says it takes up to 7 times for the victim to leave the abuser. And hopefully at that point, the victim actually does leave the abuser. And so I think about Boston Bay and how, y'all know, I took him time and time again. I took him back time and time again, and how I left him time and time again. And I think about Shayna Donahue. She broke up with him 2 years ago. And maybe before that point, she broke it off time and time again. Maybe she tried to let him go time and time again, and he just wouldn't budge. Or he'll leave for a little bit and then he'll come right back, and he'll wait, in the bushes, waiting for her to accept him back, metaphorically, right? That is just such a common behavior from an abuser. They don't want you to be happy. They want you to die with them, right? Or they just want you to die before they see you happy with anybody else. Scary. It's scary. It's terrifying. It's disturbing. And I just hope me sharing all of this about Boston Bay, about Shayna Donahue, about Emily and Fab, I just hope that this could encourage somebody to reflect on their relationship. I'm not hoping, obviously, for anyone to be in these type of relationships, but I want for anyone listening to think about their relationship that they're in, or think about a previous relationship that they were in, and think to yourself, did this event happen? Was he emotionally abusive? Did he make me feel low? Did he make me question myself? Did he make me feel like I had to walk on eggshells when I'm around him? Did he not accept my whole self? Right? And just think about that, and I'm hoping that that's not the case. I'm hoping that you don't have to experience this. But what I do want to see more, what I'm hoping to see more, is more conversations around this, is for us to normalize these conversations so that we can finally put an end to this behavior, to put an end to this dynamic in relationships, rather than normalizing the behavior itself. So it's disturbing, yo. And I just, rest in peace to Shayna Donahue. I pray that her spirit is at peace now. And that's all I could say. It's really sad when you think about how close to home abuse is. Sometimes we just read these cases from afar, right? Or you may know someone in your surroundings, but sometimes we don't realize how close it is, right? If it's not happening to you, if it's not happening to your friend, then it's not really happening, and we don't have much of these conversations. And yet you don't realize how much it's happening in your actual life. Like, I could have never been in an abusive relationship. He may not have hit you, but he put you down a lot. He made you feel like shit. He made you feel like you're crazy. He lied to you. He did it compulsively. He tried to control you. Like, all these are forms all of these are forms of abuse that we tend to normalize too much, and that we think is just okay behavior. Oh, he's just being a boy, a man, a boy. Oh, he was just angry. Y'all, just be careful, be educated on the signs, and I hope that I could have help with that. Let's move on to a little update. So 2 podcast episodes ago, I talked about quote unquote educated bae and how I was relentless in trying to find him again on the dating app, and how I was successful in doing so. We reconnected and was having pretty good conversations, right? So then there was one conversation when we had, and I was pretty clear with him. I said, I just want to know if you are interested in me, because it feels like you're not. And I said that because I would not hear much from him. And when we would communicate, it's because I initiated it. So he provided me some context to that. And he said how he does like me, and how he does find, me intriguing and interesting. And he doesn't want me to think, that he doesn't feel that way. And he could understand why I do. And he was giving me context as to why he's not a strong communicator. He said, well, he works long hours pretty much. So he's in the mental health industry, in the mental health field, and he works long hours at a hospital. And he was like breaking down his whole schedule for me, like breaking it down. So I'm like, okay, context, understanding, makes sense. So he was telling me the days that he's off, and he was telling me also that he's studying in grad school. Something, okay, getting an education too makes sense. So I'm giving more understanding to it, right? I'm trying to kind of just let that be let that be justifiable, right? But then I realized, South, like, so what you work 16-hour days? What's your point? So what you also go to grad school? What's the point? I think here's the thing. When you are interested in somebody, you make that shit clear, you make that shit known. There should be no question for the other person to think, is he interested in me or is he not? Right? Because your stance and your feeling for that person should be clear enough. Okay? So when I was saying these things to him and he provided me with context, I was thinking, okay, well, let me give him some grace, right? Let me be more understanding. And he also said after that conversation how he would be mindful of his communication efforts and do better with that, because he doesn't want me thinking otherwise, because he is interested in me. So I'm thinking, okay, great. So he will work on it. this is a great step moving forward. This is great. So I'm feeling more positive, right? The next day comes, he sends me he initiates the text conversation. And that was a good step too, because typically I initiated those. Okay. So he initiated that. And the conversation was short. Then he ended it with, I'll call you later. Something, okay, great. He'll call me later. Because that's what he said, right? That's what he said. We just had a conversation the day before, literally, about this very thing. He said, he'll call me later. He'll call me later. This is a step moving forward, right? I'm feeling very positive about it. And I'm busying myself, just going about my day. I'm not waiting by the phone, But that nigga never called me later. nigga never called me later. Like, never called me later. Okay? And I'm just like, okay. And some may say, well, he said later. He didn't say tonight. Nigga, no. Later is tonight. Let's just keep it frank. Okay, speaking of franks. But let's just keep it frank. No. You don't just say later, then call me 2 days later. No, nigga, you meant tonight, and that's not acceptable either way. That's my point. So he never called me later. I told myself I'm not calling him again. I'm not gonna text him again. I'm not gonna do the same thing again. I already did it once. I already went out of my way to find him, found him, was successful at that, and yet the same thing happened. And this was just a lesson to remind me, when someone shows you who they are, believe that nigga. Believe it at first. Don't try to paint him into someone else. Don't try to tell him about himself so he could do better. No, like, some people are just who they are initially, enough so that they will be that same person months later, years later. Like, a conversation is not going to be enough for him to suddenly change who he was and has been. Okay? Because if I can recall, when we started off initially back in March, when we first got introduced to each other via the app, he was like, we started off pretty cool, pretty strong. Then suddenly I wouldn't hear from him. We texted, we got each other's number off the app, and still I did not hear from him. And he was still playing MIA, and I sent him that vulnerable text that I talked about before, how I said, what did I say? I was like, oh, I thought we had a connection, ? And got no response. And so it takes a lot to do that, right? It takes a lot to be vulnerable and show that side. And when you do, to not get a response at all, that's fucked up. Yet I should have taken that has enough of a sign to just move on and not try to find him again. But I did. And here we are. Here's another reason why I should have just let him go from March, because clearly this is who he is, period. And one could say, well, he is busy, and that's not the point. Like, we're all busy, okay? Fucking, like, I don't give a fuck. I don't care about you studying for grad school, okay? I had my master's. I made time when I needed to make time to whomever I was dating, right? I have a job too. Like, we all are working. We all are, well, most of us, but we're all busy in our own ways. So this whole excuse of being busy is not enough to justify your lack or poor communication at all. So the days, cool, he works 16-hour days, 4 days out of the week. Okay. The other 3 days, nigga, you better be on my line. Okay? You better be present. Ain't nobody trying to, I don't have time for the excuses. What else is going on? Okay, so that's over. And whatever, it's fine. It's fine, because I told myself I'm not going to reach out to him, and I didn't, and I'm happy I didn't. And I'm glad that was a lesson that I learned. Sometimes we got to learn lessons over and over again, because I know I've been through that lesson before. But this was, like, I wasn't even tempted to kind of hit him up again, because I also think about, why? Like, why do I need to, what do I gain from reaching out to somebody who clearly hasn't reached out to me, who clearly chose to not reach out to me, who clearly decided to do the opposite of what we agreed upon recently. Like, bye. Like, I'm not gonna force you down. I'm not gonna chase you down to like me, to be present with me, to call me back. Hey, you never call. I'm just here to remind you that you didn't call me back like you said you was going to. What's up with that? Like, what the fuck? Who does that? I'm not doing that. So yeah, we haven't spoken since, and it is what it is. And he hasn't reached out. I haven't reached out. That's done. But on to somebody new. So I would say probably a few days after him not calling me back when he was supposed to, I came across someone else from the app who, I connected with. He connected with me on the app. And I was like, let me call him Big Bay. I'm calling Big Bay. That may sound like he's big, but he's not. He's just tall. I'm gonna say Tall Bay. I'm gonna get a better name. I don't like Tall Bay. It sounds quirky. Let's call him Bala Bay. And there's a reason why I'm saying that. So Bala Bay, he and I connected on the same app. Conversations great. Nice man. Organic flow. Okay. He initiates almost every conversation. And not annoyingly. You know how people always hit you up and it's annoying? It's not annoying because we have great conversation and it just feels seamless. Speaking of it, I lost my train of thought. But anyway, the conversation is so great and he's nice and I'm attracted to him and it feels good and he's affirming too. I like that about him. He's positive minded. He is solution oriented. And I'm saying that in particular because Church Bay, a previous guy, y'all know Church Bay, he was always kind of negative minded, always had a problem, always had an excuse for a problem. I would be the solution oriented person in our dynamic. And I hated that. Like, I want my man to come with solutions. I want my man to be positive minded and to affirm and to find solutions to problems. Instead, Church Bay would find more excuses or more obstacles as to why this is a problem. It's like, nigga, what the fuck? You are depressing. So being, engaging with Bala Bay, yeah, Bala Bay sounds good. I'm gonna change the name right now. Bala Bay. So Bala Bay is very positive minded and solution oriented. He's a good guy. I like him. Like, I don't know what else to say about it. And I think I'm being a little bit cute with it right now because, like, it's been, how long it's been? Probably like 2-3 weeks now. It's still fresh. So, but it's good. Like, it's good. And I like that he's 6'10". Nigga is a tree. What? Hello? What sight are we seeing? At this point, I could just climb you and look at the Eiffel Tower. What are we doing? He is tall, okay? So hello to that. He used to be a professional ball player, so a basketball player. So I guess that explains his height. Like, at least you put your height to use. But yeah, that nigga's tall. So, and okay, another reason why I'm a little hesitant to talk more about him, because we have been, like, I'm in Boston right now. I'll be back in Houston in a week, and he's in Houston. So we haven't hung out with each other. He's not a catfish. Imagine if he is. I would just throw this microphone out the window. I'm tired of talking about these niggas and being disappointed. But no, he's not. Like, we've exchanged pictures. Like, he's a real man. He's a real man, Savannah. Let me just say that. And I'm saying that like that because gag in order. Okay, shout out to Kaya. But wouldn't that suck if you were a 6'10" man and you had a small? I'm not doing this. But let's just say he's a real man. But he's super tall. So that's exciting, and it's good. And he has a good job. Like, good job and when I mean good job, I mean a job that has a 401k package. Okay, I mean, you not drug dealing on the side to make ends meet because your 9 to 5 job is lackluster, right? So nigga has a job, okay, a job, and it's sad that I even have to get excited over that. That should be standard. That should be the bare fucking minimum. Nah, nigga, do you have a job that has a 401k? Okay, so you definitely have a retirement plan. Great, we could work it out. Where's our future? Like, if you just drug dealing, you going to jail, or you about to die, or I'm gonna die with you, because ride or die. No, you ride and die. I'm out. I'm not doing that. So I'm happy he has a job. He's funny. He makes me laugh. I make him laugh. You don't want to admit it, but no, I do. And what I do like about guys, or some guys who don't do this too much, let me explain. When you we somebody too much, and by we I mean we, so like, you know how you start to like somebody, y'all are talking, and then you start using the we language, like, oh, we gotta go check that movie out. Oh, you love suspenseful movies, we gotta go check out, The Conjuring, some shit. And that's cute. I like that shit. Like, okay, we me to death. But when you we me and I don't like you, it's like, ew. Go away. Ain't no we over here. I don't want to talk to you. It's a you and I. It's a you over there. Me is separate. We are not collective, okay? But when you like somebody, that we language is cute, and it's sexy, and it's affirming for me. It makes me feel like, cool, you are interested in pursuing me. You are interested in pursuing a relationship with me and making this a union. Like, it's not just you're over here, I'm over there, we just kind of come together and make it work. No. You are purposefully speaking on us, has an us. Like, he said us, he said a we. And it's done casually. It's not too much. It's not like immediately showing possessiveness at all. I don't like a possessive ass nigga. Like, back the fuck up. But it's showing his intention. Then I thought about Educated Bae. And I thought about how he's not, like, he didn't do that. He didn't do a we. I think we connected on, I think we said that we like scary movies, something like that, or comedy. It was something that we connected on. And he could have taken that time to say, oh, have you seen this movie? And if I said no, he could have said something like, oh, well, we gotta go watch, Dave Chappelle one day, because we both like comedy. Or we gotta watch, Poltergeist one day, because we like suspense, right? That's a we statement, right? And that's nice. But Educated Bae would do something like, oh, you gotta go check that out sometimes. Definitely separating the you and the I further apart. So then I think I said this before, I think he was gay. But I think he is gay. I think he's not fully attracted to me. It's not to say that you can't be unattracted to me and not be gay, but it's to say that you can't be unattracted. It's exactly what I said. I think the point of what I'm saying is that he didn't take enough opportunities or any opportunity to show his sexual or physical desire. And mind you, we match. Like, not like we didn't match. Not like you was giving me a favor. We both matched. Anyway, whatever. Moving on from Educated Bae. Moved on from him. But Bala Bae is cute. He's handsome. And, I think I didn't explain this earlier. So the reason why I'm hesitant about really engaging more about Bala Bae and how I feel about him, I do like him. Let's get that straight. He knows that. We're both on the same page. It's cute. It's great. And what I like about him too, let me get to what I'm about to say, but what I like about him too is that he'll say, come back to Houston already. Like, he's excited to see me. Has with, just make a quick comparison. Educated Bae never said that. He never said like, oh man, I can't wait to see you, or I can't wait for you to come back. He never really made that point, which is interesting. I just realized that now. But anyway, yeah, so the reason why I'm a little hesitant on being so forthright about Bala Bae is that, we have yet to see each other in person because I'm here and he's over there. And I'm wondering, like, what if the attraction is not there? Right? Like there's attraction on every other front. We connect on the phone, we talk on the phone, like voice to voice. Once before, conversation was cool, great, like very seamless. Like I'm laughing on the phone, like it's great conversation. Texting is great conversation too. Like it's just smooth, seamless. His pictures, he's attractive in the pictures. We are connected on Instagram as well. So there's multiple platforms where I have engaged with him and he's engaged with me. Great. But it's nothing like physical. Like when you are talking to somebody in person, that is a big deal as far as chemistry goes. That's a big deal as far as, like what if, I don't know, what if he's too tall and I can't climb the tree? I don't know. But maybe I'm just psyching myself out, and I'm realizing that I have a tendency of doing that. I psych myself out and I ruin a good thing sometimes. Not, but I do believe that all the niggas I left before, I needed to leave. Like ain't nobody miss out on anything, nigga. It wasn't gonna work out. Okay. But I am excited to see him. I will definitely keep y'all niggas posted. But by the next episode, so next week's episode, I wouldn't see him until the days after that episode. So after that episode's released. So, but I will see him next week. And y'all pray for me. We'll see. But I'm excited. I'm trying to think positive, and I've been journaling lately to kind of get to the root of why I do certain behaviors. Like why do I try to find fault in people who are nothing but great to me? And that's a whole bigger conversation. But I'll probably get I'll probably get to that in a future episode. And I'll definitely get on to that in a Patreon episode. So that brings me to say, I encourage you all, if you have not yet subscribed to God Built This Patreon, to go ahead and do so by typing in patreon.com/GodBuiltThis, where you gain access to exclusive content. So more episodes, visual episodes as well. And you just kind of get to know me a little bit more. I'm obviously as honest as I can be on this public platform, but Patreon is more of an exclusive community. So click the link in the bio of Instagram for God Built This Pod, and in my personal Instagram at HeyMamore, where you can find the link to the Patreon and become a patron of God Built This Podcast. So I'll end it here, you all. Thank you guys for listening. I realize I've been doing this episode for an hour and 28 minutes, and I've just been talking. And I hope you guys learned something, because I know I talked about a lot of heavy topics, initially, and pretty much the crux of this episode was about domestic violence and abuse, and recognizing that and learning what a cycle of abuse is. It's still a lot to unpack, and this will be an ongoing conversation when need be. But I hope that this could open the conversation to having that within your own friend group, family, within your own self. So be great, be blessed, peace. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of God Built This Podcast with your host, Maxine. Be sure to leave a review, give me 5 stars, and of course, subscribe. Also, follow God Built This Podcast on Instagram at God Built This Pod. God bless.